Man is a living talisman and embodying the powers of the gods, the spirits, the archangels in our lives. You know, we're often trying to create talismans or do magic, and we're trying to draw down divine power into a talisman or into a scrying stone. But I think that we ourselves should, to a certain extent, be a receptacle to the divine influence. And if we can embody more of the divine, that in itself helps to deify us, and it helps to bring us up. So this is just a thought that if we think of the soul as like a 7-string lyre, we have like these different aspects within us. And modern magic, I think, goes a little to the extreme sometimes of seeing everything as just part of the psyche or the brain. But the ancient Hermetic view of human beings as a microcosm, a reflection of the greater universe, that we are a universe in miniature. So it's interesting that we have these 7 planetary divinities, and in Christian tradition you could say archangels above them. We have these 7 ancient planets: the Moon, Venus, Mercury, Sun, Jupiter, Mars, and Saturn. You know, but this is something to think about, that instead of just making, oh, I want to be more assertive at my job, I want to be courageous in this situation and make a talisman, maybe it's good to try to instill bravery and courage within ourselves in general. Or instead of just making a talisman to Venus to get a new love into our lives, maybe we ourselves can become more seductive and more in tune with these energies. You know, if you know, we could learn to resonate at these types of frequencies. So how do we do that? You know, I think it's interesting that Iamblichus and Neoplatonism had this idea that through proper devotion and ceremony, this is what Theurgy is, through proper devotion and ceremony, proper devotion to the gods, we can begin to embody that divine essence. It helps us to rise up. If we are to try to piece together an ancient mystery tradition from Western esoteric lore, we find in the Corpus Hermeticum that the soul fell down through the 7 planets and incarnated. And in the Divine Pymander, the beginning of the Corpus Hermeticum, our way upward is to pass into the realm of the stars. We see it hinted at in Platonism and some of the Gnostic and Hermetic writings. We have this idea of the 7 planets as a 7-rung ladder of ascent until we get to the 8th realm of the fixed stars and the divine. Even if you look at the Tree of Life, you see that the Sephirot on the Tree of Life are organized in the exact order of the Aristotelian model of the 7 ancient planets. So what we have is an ascent through the solar system, more or less. And the planets themselves were seen as merely a material reflection of the gods. Like if we read Plato's chariot allegory of the soul, it talked about the orbits of the gods, but it talked about how they would move upward to the 8th realm of the fixed stars to have their divine banquets, and that souls that were purified enough would be elevated to this level to peer outward into what is beyond the 7 planets. So clearly we have the material, well, the quintessence, whatever. We have the astrological realm, but there is seen to be a realm beyond it. Helios, or Apollo, is more than just the sun. The sun just embodies what Helios is. Or Venus as an energy is more than just the planet. Saturn more than just this wanderer or planeta. So, paganism, it's interesting, ancient pagan religions, you had these seven planetary powers in ancient Greek, Roman, and Babylonian religions. For example, you had the two luminaries and the five planetae, or wanderers. So human beings, in gazing upward into the heavens, saw the planets as wandering gods. And it's interesting that with the coming of Christianity and Islam, this never really died out. Many people would say that paganism had died. Paganism had been dead for 1,500 years or whatever. But really, if you think about it, in ceremonial magic tradition, you could be in Renaissance Italy. Everything is purely Christian, right? Everything is Christian. Paganism had died. But in the Middle Ages and in the Renaissance, people were burning incense to Venus, asking for love. People were burning incense to Mars for a martial working. So really, you could say that in ceremonial magic, you could say that in a sense, paganism never died. Now, this is a very nuanced subject. It's not simply that paganism never died. I mean, that is true from that perspective. But we also have to understand that, like with angelology and things, it's not that they were just stealing from the pagans, because every culture would have a cosmology. Every ancient culture would look out at the cosmos and they would see these things and embody them. So I don't think that paganism has, I don't think that we can say that Judaism or Islam looking upward, that was just purely pagan, because everyone needs a cosmology. It's like saying this hill is pagan or that star is pagan. So someone that worked within another tradition, such as an Islamic tradition, they may see this in another way, that star corresponds to this. So every ancient culture looking out at the cosmos would have a cosmology in the same way that we would say that this hill or this river is part of the cosmology. It's part of the cosmos. But in a nutshell, so what do we have? We have in classical ceremonial magic making talismans, spirit evocation of the spirits of Jupiter or Mars or the moon or Venus, for example, or a Saturn talisman. So you had talismans and spirit evocation. What is spirit evocation in this case? You're working with the spirits of a particular planet. So you could say in a sense that these practices never really died out. It is a continuation of these ancient practices. Magic, from this perspective, is the use of talismans and scrying with a crystal ball, a scrying stone, water, a black mirror, as a way to communicate with these powers that are seen from above. But, it's interesting that we're often making talismans or trying to communicate in a scrying mirror, when really we could try to embody these things within ourselves. I think that's very important. So, as I said, like the Neoplatonists, like Iamblichus, he said that through proper devotion to the planetary deities, we're able to partake of the divine essence. That in itself could lead towards unification. Iamblichus said that there are 3 different stages of prayer. Prayer is essential for theurgy. Prayer, according to Iamblichus. Theurgy cannot happen without prayer. But there are 3 stages of prayer. The first is introductory. That's where we talk at the gods, or we talk at these divine beings. We ask for things. Maybe we get some type of a glimpse of their energy, or we have some type of an interaction. But the second stage is conjunctive. We begin to unite with the divine. We begin to unite with the divinity through devotion. And I'm sure many of us would think of like bhakti yoga or something, so the path of union through devotion. And it is very similar in that respect. And then finally is the state of henosis, where we ourselves become divine. And our task is to divinize matter, to bring the world that we live in accordance with harmony and proportion and justice, and kind of make matter divine. So a very simple practice that I talked about in my last public video, because I also have Patreon, my last public video, I talked about a very simple practice of burning some incense and reciting the Orphic hymn of the planet ruling the day at its hour. So today is Thursday, it's the day of Jupiter. At the hour of Jupiter, burn some incense and recite the Orphic hymn. So I think just through these simple planetary devotions, through ritual and prayer, burning of incense, reciting the Orphic hymn, and also trying to embody those qualities. So this is kind of what I talked about earlier. We're often trying to make talismans, or we're trying to lure spirits into scrying crystals to communicate with them. But maybe instead of just making a talisman to be assertive in this situation or strong, maybe we could try to bring courage and bravery and assertiveness into our lives. Maybe we could, instead of just asking Venus to grant us happiness and love, maybe we ourselves could try to be more lovable and more seductive. You know, gotta get a little seductive on it, you know. Jupiter, we want authority, we want power, we want dignity. What was Jupiter or Zeus? Jupiter was the king of the gods. It's that kingly aspect. Or in Jewish tradition, you could say that is Tzadkiel. Okay, so we're embodying that kingly aspect. If we carry into our lives a kingly aspect, a jovial aspect, if we're able to nurture these qualities in ourselves, then we could better be receptacles of the divine. So we here below are these creatures peering upward into the heavens, trying to contemplate the divine realm from which we came. We ourselves can become more fit receptacles to these powers and try to embody these powers. And embodying these powers, we could make nature, we could bring these divine powers into the material world. So, you know, what I recommend that I talked about, and Christopher Warnock talks about it in his Celestial Way and other books, and many people have talked about a very simple daily practice. It could be approached from any tradition. From a pagan perspective, and many Christians like Marsilio Ficino, who was a priest, also used it. Burn incense, you know, you could do it the day and hour of the planet. Burn incense to the planet of the day at that hour and recite the Orphic hymn. Very simple. And then sit in silence, because many of us don't really learn how to pray. The proper method of prayer, I think, that's found in many traditions, is you have an external way of a calling and a vocal prayer, and then you have a moment of silence to be receptive. I think that's very important. But what I recommend, whether you're doing Orphic hymns every day, or whether you're calling on the planetary archangel from that perspective, I think a daily devotional practice to the 7 ancient planets is very important. Because in Western ceremonial magic, we're dealing with the 7 planets, right? If we're dealing with the 7 planets, then these are our ancient spirits that we're working with, these ancient divinities or archangels, or however you want to see it. So if these are 7 powers, it makes sense to kind of come close to them. If we ourselves are attuned to Mars, and we have that courageous energy, and we're in touch with Mars, maybe we wear red, and we burn incense to Mars, and we try to embody that, look for martial things. Maybe when we go to ask for something, we'll get a better result. Now, this is something that there's a lot of debate in the occult community. Some would say it doesn't matter. Just burn, follow the ritual and it'll happen, So there are different perspectives on this, but I think that coming close to the divine, these divine powers, we could better be attuned to them, It's like asking someone a favor you just met versus asking someone a favor that you've known for years. So you'd probably be more likely to do it. So, through the process of theurgy and through proper devotion to the gods, or proper devotion to the archangels, or proper devotion to these higher powers, we can come and try to embody these things. And once again, instead of just asking to be more courageous in this situation, what if you embody courage more? Or just asking for new love? that we try to be a little bit more seductive, you know, a little bit more seductive, a little bit more lovable. Or with Saturn, we try to embody these qualities of discipline, you know. And of course, this all kind of goes back a little bit, perhaps, to your birth chart, kind of looking at the things that we need to work on. And another thing, you know, maybe Mars is not well placed. Maybe it's not the time to do a full-on talisman. But through a lighter approach of prayer and devotion, you know, we're not going to have that kind of blowback, but we can kind of attune to that energy. So I think having a daily cycle and a daily practice with the 7 planets is very useful. So anyways, and if you look at most ancient traditions and religions, it is transactional. You offer this and you get this. So I think the burning of incense and prayer is a very easy way. So I highly recommend, with planetary magic, the burning of incense and prayer, either to the divinities as the planetary gods, or to the archangels, the planetary archangels, the burning of incense and prayer. So I highly recommend this as an essential part of daily practice. So anyways, that's just a quick video about the human being as a living talisman and trying to embody those divine powers. So more stuff to come, y'all. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see y'all in the next video. All right, have a great day, y'all.